A very good evening to all my dear students. Welcome to today's session. And today is the third session for our chapter number 9, which is audit of items of financial statements. So I can see Harshita, Khushi, Kanhaiya, Dhruvi, Alok, Jyoti, Jash, Dhyanesh. All these students have already joined. Others also ask your friends to join quickly because today we'll be completing few very important topics in chapter number 9. Okay? Now, before starting with the topic for today, let me just quickly discuss with you as to what we have covered in this chapter so far and what we will be covering today. So, students, with respect to this chapter, we started our discussion with the topic assertions. And students, why am I repeating the headings of these topics again? Because in case you have any doubt with respect to these topics, so as and when the topic will come, please send in your queries, whatever you have with respect to these topics. Okay? So that is the reason why I'm just discussing with you as to what we have done so far. So we started with one of the balance sheet item, which is what share capital, whereby we discussed about verifications of shares issued at a premium, at discount, then verification of sweat equity shares, reduction of share capital, followed by discussion with respect to reserves and surplus, right? We also discussed in detail about verification of the various assertions with respect to borrowings, right? Then we started with the asset side item, whereby we started with discussion of trade receivables, cash and cash equivalents, right? Inventories, in the last session, we have just have had a general discussion with respect to verification of inventories. And today we'll be doing this topic in detail, right? Apart from this, we'll be doing today the verification with respect to property, plant and equipment, intangible assets, and if the time will permit, trade payables also. Further, students, the notes with respect to share capital, Hana, and with respect to borrowings are left, that I'll be taking up in the next session. Okay? In the last session, we have also discussed 5 MCQs, and today also we'll be discussing the MCQs. But students, discussion of these MCQs, right? It will be of utmost benefit to you if and only if before coming for the session, you go through the entire module till where we have covered. Hana? You yourself should be able to give the correct answer. Okay? So I can see now Lakshmi, Aman, Krishnan, Priyanka, Chitala, Alok. And Alok is saying, ma'am, completed the homework, which is very, very good. Right? So let us start with inventories, which we had discussed in the last session, but in detail and from the module, we'll be doing it today. Okay? Inventories. Okay? So students, inventories, as you all know, are what current assets. Hana? And the relevant accounting standard, you all told me that, ma'am, it is AS2, which says that inventories need to be valued at cost or net realizable value, whichever is lower, right? Apart from this, I told you that you have already done in this detail Essay 501, which is with respect to the audit evidence, particularly with respect to existence and condition assertion of what? Inventories. Then we have also done Essay 505. Hana? So where will Essay 505 help? When the inventories are kept with warehouse, transporters, then the auditor can obtain what? External confirmation. Hana? Itna knowledge hai aapko already because we have discussed all these things in detail. Now let us have a look at the various audit procedures. है ना? तो इस चैप्टर में हम क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? That with respect to a particular item of audit of financial statements and particularly with respect to the various assertions, उनको कैसे verify करना है? So for that, auditor will perform what? Audit procedures, and what all audit procedures auditor will have to perform when he's checking what? Existence assertion with respect to inventories. है ना? So I'll quickly go through all these points because in the last session, we have had a good discussion about these points. So whose responsibility is inventory verification? Count, the physical inventory count is the responsibility of the management. So what is the responsibility of the auditor? He will attend that physical inventory count, right? So auditor will review the entity's plan of conducting the inventory count as to what is the periodicity, है ना? कितने intervals में auditor, the client is getting the inventory count conducted by its personnel, right? And then he'll participate, the auditor and his team will participate in the inventory count that has been conducted by the personnel of the client, right? And there, if you remember, when we discussed SA 501, we have discussed that auditor will not just attend the physical inventory count, he'll also observe, right, the process of the management to conduct the physical inventory count as to how actually the the inventory has been physically counted, right? If you remember, I told you at that time that practically what happens is when the inventory has been counted, the in and out movement of the stock is stopped for that moment. Hana? So auditor will observe as to whether that actually happens, right? When the inventory counting is done, the personnel takes down the notes with respect to, or they make some stock records, the inventory records. So auditor will see whether that has been done or not. Hana? When the inventory has been counted by the personnel management, there is someone from the management who supervises such process. So auditor will verify as to whether there is appropriate supervision or not, right? So just try to visualize yourself in a situation whereby you are actually involved in observing, right, in attending the physical inventory count. I'm sure you will be able to quickly understand as to what is contained in these audit procedures. So he'll perform test count, he'll observe the employees. Auditor will see that all items of inventory are tagged, है ना? Proper tagging उसके ऊपर होनी चाहिए ना, whereby what is contained in that carton, if there is a carton, what are the dates, है ना? Auditor will see that, and such tags should have the proper amounts also, right? And whether the inventory count has been supervised, auditor will see that. Now, with respect to all the tagging, है ना? Tags will be put on all the cartons. Let's say certain cartons are there which has, let's say, chocolates, है ना? So what quantity is contained, है ना? What is the weight? Everything will be mentioned, है ना? So auditor will tally the tags with the summary sheet that are being prepared by the personnel who are conducting the inventory count. In case of any discrepancy, auditor will discuss the same with the client, right? Further, when the auditor is observing the inventory count, students, it might be possible now that certain cartons are empty, है ना? They are not containing, let's say, chocolates, है ना? So auditor needs to be alert to all such situation. He needs to be aware about, he needs to be aware, alert as to whether there are any empty boxes or any damaged items, है ना? Obsolete items, right? Now, we have discussed this point. For the timing, I'm leaving this point. With respect to this point, if you remember, when we discussed the completeness assertion, Anna, we have seen that all the inventory that should have been recorded has actually been recorded. This completeness assertion with respect to inventory means this, right? So that means any inventory that is belonging to the third party, right? Let's say my client A Limited has received certain items from B Limited for job work purpose. So that those products, they belong to what? B Limited. So that shall be included that shall not be included in the total inventory of my client, that is A Limited. Clear? Same way, if inventory of A Limited is lying with the third party, right? Let's say A Limited has given its stock for some job work to B Limited. Then though that is lying with the other party, with the third party, but that shall be included in the inventory of A Limited. Clear? Logical hai bahut, theek hai? Damaged and obsolete goods shall be excluded. Then whatever these summary sheets, stock sheets are prepared, auditor will see whether proper accounting has been done or not. In case of significant differences, he'll investigate such differences and he'll make sure, like when he's observing now, he'll make sure, he'll see as to whether the entities personnel who are conducting the physical inventory count, whether they are actually signing the all the stock count sheets. The responsibility for that stock counting must be established now. So that will be done by signatures of the entities personnel who are conducting the physical inventory count. Okay. Now, next point is, see if the inventory has been counted on a periodic basis. Let's say year end pe hota hai. So auditor will attend that physical inventory count at that time, right? Now, if the records are maintained on a perpetual basis, what is perpetual? Continuous basis. Let's take an example of a grocery store, or your various grocery stores, big stores, whereby whatever is been sold, whatever item is been added, they automatically get updated on a perpetual continuous basis. So in that case, auditor can attend such, or he can verify such physical inventory count on some interim dates, right? Further, this is the same point that we have done, that inventory lying with the third party shall not be included. In the last session, students, if you remember, I discussed with you that various analytical review procedures auditor can perform with respect to verification of inventory. First of all, tell me what is the essay number with respect to analytical review procedures. You all have done this in detail and in chapter number 8, and many of you have answered it correctly in the last session, but there were certain students who have mentioned wrong essay numbers. So quickly send in your replies. Analytical review procedures. So it is essay 520. So auditor can compare with the industry average, with the budgets, with the inventory of the previous year, right? Auditor can also calculate what? Inventory turnover ratio. That is the cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. Okay? He can also have vertical analysis. What is vertical analysis? See, these are all my assets, the assets of my client, and this is the total assets. So this is inventory. So vertically calculate kar rahe ho na, that is inventory divided by total assets. And auditor can compare the budgets with the actuals, right? And students, you all have done in analytical review procedures that it includes what? Financial as well as non-financial information. Try to relate it with your chapter number 8 ka understanding. So auditor can also consider certain non-financial informations like the weights and measurements, and he may perform various comparisons and trend analysis. So it's good that many of you have answered it correctly. Essay 520. That is good. Except for one student, please correct yourself, right? So it is not 530, it is 520. So auditor may consider that. See, just consider, see, when the auditor is considering completeness, so Kanhaiya, this is with respect to your doubt. So auditor is performing certain vertical analysis, whereby I told you he'll be calculating inventory by total assets. Okay? Now let's say last year, if he compare it with the last year, there has been a decrease in this ratio. So that is an indication that inventory is not complete. It is an indication that inventory might not be complete. So that is why he'll calculate what? Inventory with as a ratio of total asset, and he'll compare it with the earlier years. Okay, Kanhaiya, is your doubt clear? Is it clear? Right? And budgets to actual. So if the actual inventory is less than the budgeted inventory, then also there will be what? A doubt that whether inventory is complete or not. So auditor will what? He will apply his professional skepticism here, right? So he'll calculate various ratios, various trends in order to analyze as to whether the inventory is complete or not, right? Kanhaiya, is your doubt clear? Further, students, auditor, see, when the inventory has been purchased, right, of raw material is there, work in progress is there, finished goods are there. So with respect to the part that has been purchased, auditor will see what are the cutoffs, whether that inventory needs to be included in the current period, or whether it belongs to the other period. So auditor will perform all those procedures, right? And this again we have done. Now tell me, if I ask you that, if you have to check the rights assertion with respect to inventory, whether the organization, the client is having right over the inventory, quickly tell me what is the first document that comes to your mind. इन्वेंट्री का राइट्स assertion पर कंफर्ट लेना है ऑडिटर को. So what is the document that comes to your mind? Quickly send in your replies. So Kanhaiya, that's good if it is clear to you. Quickly send in your reply. The first document. And students, I'm telling you again and again, start thinking with respect to the various audit procedures that auditor can perform with respect to the various items of financial statement in these sessions only, right? Because this exercise of thinking in this session is going to help you in your examination. You may get any of the item of the financial statement which we might not have discussed. But if you know as to how to start thinking कि assertion है, rights है, इसके लिए क्या document आएगा, you can very well write the correct answers. So yes, purchase invoice, which is absolutely correct. Purchase sale, absolutely correct. Okay? So in order to establish the rights assertion, so auditor will consider the underlying documents. So auditor will see the purchase order, the vendor invoice, the copy of the vendor invoice, payment file with respect to the items that have been received, the receiving report, like when the stock is received, at the factory gate, someone must have signed it now that so and so a quantity has been received. So auditor will check all the documents in order to establish that such and such inventory belongs to the client. Further, he will also consider the consigned goods. If the client has given certain goods on consignment basis to B Limited, like A Limited has given it to B Limited on consignment basis, so he'll consider the consignment agreement also, right? In order to see as to what are the risk and reward, when are they transferring, right? With respect to collateral agreement, see if the inventory has been given as a security for any loan, so there also auditor will consider all those agreements. Why? Because he wants to see, dekho, abhi to these have been given as a security now, so he will have to see whether the company is abiding by all the terms which are mentioned in those agreements, so in order to see whether the inventory has actually been given as a security, he'll go through what? Collateral agreements. Okay? Material purchase commitment agreement. So the entity A Limited may enter into an agreement with B Limited that itna quantity of material to we are committing that we will purchase at so and so price at so and so date. So this is what material purchase commitment agreement, which is abiding on both the parties, A Limited bhi, B Limited bhi. So auditor will consider that also. Usse bhi to rights establish ho jayenge na. Then as you all said, invoices, yes, auditor will consider that. Okay? Then with respect to various, if any inventory is kept at warehouse, or it is lying with the transporter, or with any job worker, auditor will perform the procedures as are specified in SA 501. So SA 501 क्या कहता है? आप confirmation लो ना, representation, confirmation from the third party on the business letterhead of that party which is been signed, है ना? तो इसको क्या बोलते हैं? External confirmation. And this is under SA 505. But SA 501 specifies as to in such a situation where the inventory is lying with the third party, what can auditor do? ठीक है? So Khojema, your query is not clear. Please repeat it. Please clarify me as to what you want to ask. Okay? Now, with respect to valuation, as you all have already answered that, ma'am, AS2 is there, whereby FIFO or weighted average is allowed, and cost or NRV, whichever is lower. Right? Now, students, when the auditor has to verify the valuation assertions, Hana, so what is meant by that? Basically, the value at which the inventory of raw material, of work in progress, or of finished goods, it is appearing in the balance sheet. Auditor will now check whether it is actually so, whether that calculation, whether that valuation is correct or not. Hana. So now we'll be discussing about various audit procedures, and that is divided into three parts. That with respect to raw materials and consumables, what are the audit procedures? What auditor is going to verify? With respect to work in progress and with respect to your finished goods, what are the audit procedures auditor will apply, right? So the thumbnail is what AS2 says that either FIFO, first in, first out, or your weighted average, the company may follow that, right? So students, is it clear? कोई doubt है अभी तक? Please send in your queries. Hojima, please send in your doubt again. ठीक है? Now with respect to raw materials, Hana. So see, the basic idea will be same, that what cost is included. Only normal overhead should come, Hana. Cost or NRV, whichever is lower. Obsolete items per auditor needs to consider, Hana. Slow moving items पे, ठीक है? So with respect to raw material and consumables, auditor will verify as to what elements of cost are included, right? Like carriage inward, Hana, that needs to be included, whether that has been included or not, Hana. So what elements of cost are included? Now, if the standard costing method is being used by the client, Hana, in order to, with respect to the costing, then auditor can always ask the management, and he can also always inquire as to what is the basis of such standard costing, how the entity is comparing it with the actuals, and in case of any variances, how the same is analyzed and accounted for. Hana, auditor needs to perform audit procedures in order to verify that, right? Auditor will also compare the cost price with the prices in the purchase invoice. देखो जो price आपके purchase invoice में आ रहे हैं, that is basically what the net realizable value ना, हाँ. So auditor will compare the cost price with the purchase invoices, and in case of specifically in case of damaged and obsolete goods, obsolete raw material, auditor will see whether it has been valued at realistic net realizable value, Hana. So not at cost. Why? Because these are damaged, these are obsolete. So these should be valued at what? The NRVs. Okay. Okay. So is it clear? Simple hai that what cost has been included. If standard costing concept has been used by the company, then what is the basis? How they are verifying the variances, Hana, how the same has been accounted for. He'll compare the cost with the NRV, and more specifically with respect to damaged and obsolete good, auditor will consider that these are actually valued at what? Realistic net realizable value. देखो cost पर तो अब इसको value करने का see cost or NRV whichever is less. Since these are damaged, these are obsolete or slow moving items, obviously the realizable value is going to be very less, Hana. So auditor will consider that. Now with respect to work in progress, Hana, तो पहला point क्या आता है mind में? Work in progress. Dhyanish, your doubt, nahin, Kanhaiya, your doubt will be cleared. Just a minute. We will be discussing this topic after I finish this valuation. So work in progress, है ना? तो पहले तो how the percentage of work in progress has been measured, है ना? How the stages of production value addition has been calculated. So what is the management's method to calculate that? After that, again, what elements of cost are included? If overheads are included, what is the basis? Hana? See, you will be doing a concept of process costing. Hana? So basically, whatever data, costing data or financial data is available, auditor will compare the overhead basis with that, right? And material cost, it shall exclude abnormal wastage, right? Because we have seen that only the normal cost, normal overheads are going to become the part of the work in progress inventory and not the abnormal wastage, right? Okay. So it is basically, Dhyanish, it is basically the budgeted cost, right? Okay. Now with respect to finished goods, again, what costs are included? If overheads, these should be normal, these should be reasonable as per the information which is disclosed in the financial statement. And ultimately the concept is what? Cost or NRV, whichever is low. Okay. Here I would like to take you through the module. Just a minute. See this point. So for raw material and consumables, auditor will ascertain what elements of cost are included: carriage inward, refundable duties, right? Non-refundable duties. If standard costs are used, inquire the basis of such standards, how these are compared with actual, how the variances are analyzed, and how these are treated in accounting records. Test check the cost prices with the purchase invoices received in the month prior to counting. Why? Because these purchase invoices, they will give an idea of the net realizable value. Now that itna value per these are available, so itna hi market mein price will be available, right? And with respect to the valuation of damaged, obsolete inventory, auditor will verify whether these are valued at what? The realistic net realizable value. ठीक है. For work in progress, ascertain how the various stages की work in progress का stages कैसे calculate किया है. What is the estimates? If estimates are used, then try to understand that. What elements of costing are included? If overheads are included, then overhead should not come. Material cost shall include what? Abnormal wastage factors, right? For finished goods or goods for resale, inquire again as to how costs are included, what costs are included. Ensure that overheads included has been determined based on normal and reasonable in relation to the information disclosed. Ensure inventories are valued at net realizable value if they are likely to fetch value lower than their cost. Correct? Is it clear? Right? Now, with respect to slow moving item, so there was a doubt, Hana Kanhaiya. So slow moving item is what? Where? Before that, now just a minute. Okay. Now, see, first of all, try to understand this aging report with respect to inventories. So auditor will ask the client to provide him with an aging split of the inventory. Aging, as the name suggests, so it will basically tell auditor that how old is the inventory. If there is an inventory which is lying with the client for the last 1 year, that means it is a very slow moving item, right? So auditor will ask the management na ki management batao isko use karne kyun nahi kar rahe ho, why this inventory is lying with you for the last 1 year. Auditor will specifically, he will divert his audit procedures towards valuation of such obsolete slow moving inventory na, because ho sakta hai uska value, net realizable value is very much low than the cost. ठीक है. So slow moving item जो बहुत time से जो आपका production process है उसमें it hasn't moved. ठीक है कन्हैया, is it clear now? So with respect to obsolete, damaged or slow moving items, auditor will consider as to what is the possible realizable value. He will carefully examine the valuation. Because these are obsolete, damaged और slow moving, तो obvious है ना कि cost और net realizable value में से net realizable value is going to be lower. Aging split, he will ask the management, and how will he know as to what are the slow moving items? He will ask the management to provide with the aging report. Okay? Auditor will then consider whether the overheads that have been included are what? Direct with respect to material, labor and overhead. So this was with respect to what? Valuation of inventory. Okay? You may get a 4-marker question with respect to valuation of the work in progress of ABC Limited engaged in the manufacture of, let's say, chocolates. So this is the answer. You need to write it. ठीक है? And I'm telling you again and again, don't go after learning the general answers, है ना? जहां पर आपको work in progress का valuation assertion का question पूछा है, वहां पर आप inventory के general points you cannot write. ठीक है? Is it clear? And now the disclosure part is left, which we will be doing from the module itself. So before that, let me just take you through the module once with respect to inventories. So these are what current assets, which can be either held for sale in the ordinary course of business, that is the finished goods, or in the process of production of sale, that is the work in progress, or consumption in the production of goods or services, or in the form of material supplies to be consumed, that is what your raw material. AS2 क्या कहता है? Valuation of inventory, that it needs to be valued at cost or NRV, the lower of cost or NRV. ठीक है? And as you all know that this policy needs to be consistently applied, right? And adequate disclosures are required. Now, with respect to existence, है ना? Review the entity's plan, ensure that consigned goods are segregated. Auditor needs to participate in inventory count and participate करके क्या करना है? सिर्फ चाय पी के आना है क्या? हमने डिस्कस किया था ना ऐसे 501 में कि नहीं, ऑडिटर विल ऑब्जर्व, ही परफॉर्म टेस्ट अकाउंट, है ना? He'll ensure that all items are what tagged, right? Supervision है, ठीक है? Tags पर proper amounts are mentioned. Tags and summary sheets को he'll reconcile, right? Reconciliation of test counts will tied and discrepancies हैं तो client personnel के साथ he'll discuss. Staying alert with respect to empty boxes, obsolete items, right? Cut-off testing. What is cut-off testing? So cut-off क्या होता है? Whether the inventory pertains to the correct period, है ना? So it should not happen that this inventory needs to be considered in the next financial year, though it has been considered here in the year under audit, or vice versa, right? So what will auditor do? He will consider the documentation with respect to inventory with respect to last 5 days, or you can say last 5-10 receiving reports or shipping documents, in order to see as to whether this inventory pertains to the year under audit or to the next year. So with respect to cutoff procedure, we have discussed this topic in detail when we have discussed about debtors. So here also the basic idea will be the same. Exclusion of what? Third party, the third party stock, the inventory belonging to third party, damaged or obsolete stock, and ensure that accounting of all stock sheets have been done. Significant difference है, उसको investigate करना है and variances को observe करना है, ठीक है? Periodic system है, then at the year end, if the entity is using perpetual is what? Continuous, है ना? I gave you example of what? Grocery stores, है ना? And adequate records are maintained, inventory may be counted at what? Interim dates, ठीक है? And if an inventory is lying with a third party, like job work, transporter, warehouses, auditor will perform various procedures as are given in SA 501. What are the analytical review procedures? So you may get a question that what analytical review procedures auditor can perform with respect to what? The inventories. So inventory turnover ratio. So first of all, auditor will perform various comparisons with industry averages, budgets, trend analysis. He'll compute an inventory turnover ratio. He'll perform vertical analysis. I hope, Kanhaiya, now vertical analysis is clear. Compare the budgetary expectations with the actuals, non-financial information like weights and other measurements ko bhi he can consider, right? Auditor will see purchase and sales cutoff. Again, cutoff testing in order to see whether that needs to be accounted for in the current year only. Okay? Before and after the year end, है ना? तो जैसे we have discussed when we were discussing trade receivables, na? So if the auditor is conducting the audit with respect to financial year 21-22, so as on 31st March 2022, तो यहाँ पर जो transactions हुई हैं, like let's say 5th April तक and यहाँ पे 25th March तक, so auditor will consider them specifically in order to see whether they are being accounted in the correct accounting period, right? If an inventory has been tagged, है ना? Tagging है, so it should not happen that it is not coming in the books of account, that is omitted है, ठीक है? Same way he will consider what? Arithmetical accuracy. Then these are again the same points, right? Now with respect to the valuation, whether the rights, whether the company, the client is having the rights over the inventory, auditor will vouch the recorded purchases. I told you that whatever documents are there, auditor will check each and every document in order to see whether the client is having the right over such inventory, be it the purchase requisition, who started the purchases, who asked for the purchases, the purchase order, the receiving report, the vendor invoices, cancel check, payment file, each and every document that auditor can check in order to establish the rights assertion. Okay? Evaluate the consigned goods, and with respect to consigned goods, auditor will what? He will review the consignment agreements, right? Further, auditor will see existence of collateral agreements. If the inventory has been given as a security, so with respect to that, auditor will see the agreements, whether all the conditions, all the terms that are prescribed in that agreement, whether that has been complied with by the company or not. Auditor will also review material purchase commitment agreement. Material purchase, as we have discussed, that where the client has entered into an agreement. Let's say client is A Limited. So A Limited has entered into an agreement with B Limited that so much quantity of the material at so and so price and at so and so date we commit to purchase. So material purchase commitment agreements. So this will also establish as to whether the company is having the right over the inventory so purchased, right? Examine the invoices, and SA501 says that if inventory is lying with the third party, so these two points are with respect to inventory lying with third party. So auditor will see as to whether the confirmation has been taken or not, right? So auditor will consider that. With respect to valuation, we have seen that the thumb rule is what? AS2 says that either FIFO or the weighted average method can be used. With respect to raw material, with respect to work in progress, with respect to the finished goods, we have seen as to what audit procedures the auditor needs to perform. Okay? And if you can see with respect to the damaged, slow moving goods, auditor will consider what? The aging split. Aging split is what? Age wise, how old the inventory is. If some inventory is lying for a very long period, then what is the reason? Is it slow moving? Is it obsolete? Right? So auditor will consider all that thing. Okay? So it is mentioned here. In case of the obsolete, the damaged goods, follow up any inventories which are obsolete or damaged, right? Inventory turnover ratio, only direct cost will come, right? All that we have already done. Now, with respect to the disclosure requirements, students, this also I have discussed in the last session, So Schedule 3, Part 1 to the Companies Act gives the disclosure requirement, And who will give such disclosure? The management, the client. Who will check such disclosure? The auditor. Whether the disclosures that are been required by the applicable FRF by Schedule 3 to the Companies Act, whether that has been properly given or not. So the management, the client will disclose the inventory by classifying it as raw material, work in progress, finished goods, stock in trade, stores and spares, loose tools and others. And whether the good in transit, whether any good in transit are there, so whether these are being reflected under each head of inventory. So if any goods are in transit pertaining to, let's say, work in progress, so goods in transit with respect to work in progress will be shown separately. With respect to finished goods, the same will be shown separately. And what is the mode of valuation? Is it FIFO or is it weighted average? Okay. So with this, we have completed inventory. Okay. We have had a lot of discussion about inventory in the last session also. I hope it is clear to you. And Kanhaiya, tell me, is it clear with respect to slow moving items or slow moving or obsolete stock? Let me just have a look at your queries. Thereafter, we'll be starting with what? Your property, plant and equipment ka verification. So let me just have a look at your queries. So Kanhaiya, your doubt with respect to this spare parts kept for more than 1 year, it will be clear when we will be doing PPE. Okay? Dhyanesh, I hope your doubt with respect to standard cost is clear. And Miss Bohra, if this is your first class, then you can attend the today's session, and you should attend the today's session. And with respect to the earlier sessions with respect to this chapter, please view them on the application, or these are also available on the YouTube. And before coming for the session, for the next session, which is on 30th November, please go through, please watch all those videos, at least with respect to this chapter. Okay? I'm sure this is going to help you. Sharan Krishnan, which notes, please specify. So Dhyanesh, Alok, Priyanka, Kanhaiya, they are saying, ma'am, it is clear. Others also please reply whether whatever we have discussed so far in inventory ka verification, we have done it, whether it is clear or not. So these are Jyoti, basically spare parts and all. Okay? Now, without looking at the module, quickly tell me what all is included in property, plant and equipment, and what accounting standard comes to your mind when I discuss about property, plant and equipment. Batao. Property, plant and equipment में क्या आएगा? Or which accounting standard? है ना? Tell me, quickly tell me. So students, I'm waiting for your replies. Property, plant and equipment. And I'm sure whatever question I'm going to ask you, you all will be able to answer correctly. Okay. So many of you are saying, ma'am, AS10 comes to our mind, which is absolutely correct. Then others are saying, ma'am, land and building mind mein aata hai. Plant and machinery. Priyanka is saying plant and machinery, land and building. Dhyanesh is saying building, land, plant, furniture. Okay. And intangible assets. Abhi Jyoti, we will move to intangible assets also. You all are absolutely correct. Okay. Now tell me, let's say plant and machinery hai idhar. Okay. And let's say land and building hai. Okay. Tell me students, if I talk about plant and machinery, I'm not saying as to which particular assertion, with respect to which particular assertion you need to answer. I'm just saying that plant and machinery ka agar verification karna hai, what all documents come to your mind? Plant and machinery hai, aapki koi manufacturing, let's say chocolate manufacturing company hai, chocolate, है ना? And it is having certain plant जहां पर chocolates manufacture होती है. What all comes to your mind? कैसे verify करोगे कि ये plant and machinery exist करती है ना, complete है ना, rights है ना, valuation proper है ना, presentation and disclosure proper है ना, like all these assertions. तो common documents, quickly tell me what all documents come to your mind, है ना? So, ठीक है, Jyoti Singh, title deed, absolutely correct, but this is with respect to your land and building, है ना? Plant and machinery, furniture fitting से case में what will be the corresponding document? So, purchase invoice, absolutely correct, है ना? ठीक है, absolutely correct. Physical verification कर लोगे. ठीक है, who has answered it? Alok. Then valuation में क्या consider करोगे? If I ask you about the valuation of plant and machinery, what is the first term that comes to your mind? The way we have discussed for trade receivable का valuation, we saw that provision allowance कैसे calculate करते हैं. So that is the first thing, है ना? Now with respect to the valuation of plant and machinery, tell me what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Absolutely correct, Jyoti. It is the depreciation. ठीक है, ठीक है. Balance sheet of last year, Ramnivas is saying we will consider correct. ठीक है. So I can say we will obtain a schedule of the opening balance, है ना? Plus whatever additions are there during the year, minus whatever deletions are there during the year, and the closing balance. As per this schedule, whatever closing balance will come, we will compare it with the books of accounts, the amount that is coming in the books of accounts. What is the method of accounting and depreciation? Charan Mishra is saying, which is absolutely correct, है ना? तो देखो आपको already पता है that what is to be verified, what audit procedures auditor will perform. ठीक है? And students, with respect to verification of property, plant and equipment, and the next topic, which is what intangible assets, है ना? So you will see that the audit procedures with respect to both these items are almost same, है ना? So I'll devote much more time towards discussing property, plant and equipment, है ना? And when we'll be discussing the verification of intangible assets, I'll discuss only the points which are like exclusive for intangible assets. So rest of all everything will be same, है ना? यहाँ depreciation करते हो, intangible assets में क्या होता है? Amortization होता है ना? यहाँ पर फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन करोगे आप प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट का, बट इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स का तो फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन नहीं होगा ना, तो देयर विल बी समथिंग एल्स. सो व्हाट इज दैट समथिंग एल्स वी विल डिस्कस व्हेन वी विल बी टेकिंग द टॉपिक इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स का वेरिफिकेशन. ठीक है? सो नाउ प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट का लेट अस स्टार्ट द डिस्कशन फ्रॉम योर मॉड्यूल. वन मोर थिंग, when all of you have said that ma'am AS10, so students, see, with respect to plant and machinery, furniture, fixture, vehicles, office equipment, computers, like basically with respect to the property, plant and equipment, the auditor needs to consider a very important point, that whether any expense needs to be charged to the P&L or it needs to be considered as what? A capital expenditure and to be added to the cost of the capital. ठीक है? Tell me, just give your answer 1 and yes, 2 and no, like whatever is the answer. ठीक है? So my first question, the acquisition cost of asset, whether it will be capitalized, yes or no. So you just write 1 and whatever is the answer. Acquisition cost of asset. वैसे this is very simple, it will be capitalized. ठीक है? Now with respect to second, additions to the asset that increases the capacity, earning capacity of the asset. So answer is correct. ठीक है? Second, additions, expenditure on additions that increases the earning capacity. Quickly send in your replies. So let me just wait for another. Absolutely correct. So Gomadi has answered for the third question also. So the third point is benefits, like the benefits derived out of the expenditure which are long term in nature. So the answer is again yes. And expenditure incurred that is going to minimize the cost of production. So this is the fourth point, cost of production wala. Expenditure that has an effect of minimizing the cost of production. So you all have answered correctly with respect to the 3 points. Quickly send in a reply with respect to the fourth point also. So the answer is yes, it also needs to be capitalized, है ना? So auditor will perform the audit procedures in order to see whether any expenditure that has been incurred with respect to a particular PPE, whether that needs to be charged to P&L or whether that needs to be added to the cost that it to be considered as capital expenditure. है ना? So acquisition cost, any addition to the assets that increases the earning capacity, any benefits derived which are long-term in nature, or the expenditure that minimizes the cost of production, these are to be what? Capitalized, right? For the students, see what is wages. Wages is what? It is a revenue expenditure, right? But wages on installation of machinery. So without incurring this wages expense, the machinery would not have been installed. So in such a case, this expenditure will be what? Capitalized, है ना? Because इतना ये wages का खर्चा किया है बिना, the machinery would not have been installed, है ना? So it will be capitalized. Same way legal expense, ये भी वैसे तो आपका it is a revenue expenditure, right? But legal expense on purchase of land and building, है ना? तो in order to purchase that land and building, incurring this legal expense was necessity. ठीक है? So this is what again it needs to be capitalized. Same way of freight inward, though it is what a revenue kind of nature, a revenue expenditure, right? But where the freight inward is incurred on purchase of any asset, so again it will be capitalized, because unless and until these expenses were incurred, ye asset create hi nahi hota na, so these will be what? These will be capitalized. Clear? So my fourth point, who is saying, Mr. Mishra, it was with respect to the expenditure which has an effect of minimizing the cost of production. Okay? And I'm sure that you all have already done all these things in your foundation, and these must be very much clear to you. Okay? But regular repairs on asset, so these will be what? These will be charged to a P&L. That is, these are of revenue in nature. Okay? Clear? So auditor will consider that. Now with respect to existence, जैसे inventory को verify किया था ना, same way here existence of the PPE, property, plant and equipment, auditor will perform the same audit procedures. ठीक है? So auditor will see the entity's plan of physical verification. What is the periodicity? Whether the entity is getting the physical verification of PPE done by the own staff or some third party has been involved. Periodicity, whether the physical verification of the property, plant and equipment is been conducted once a year or once in 2 years or once in 3 years, auditor will consider that. Accordingly, he will plan his attendance. Okay? He'll see whether supervision has been done or not. Physical verification ka report ko compare karna hai working sheet se. All items should be tagged. Students, you must have seen na ki libraries mein when there are table and chairs, hai na, to wahan par there are some markings whereby the name of the client, some ID marks are mentioned, hai na, the number of the chair, hai na, all that is mentioned. So auditor will see whether that is actually happened or not. Okay? All the plant and machinery, all the furniture fittings, they should carry what? Tags. And then whatever information is there on the tags, the same will be reconciled with what? Fixed asset register. And whatever additions are taking place during the year in the PP, the same will be updated in the fixed asset register. In case of any discrepancy, the same will be resolved by the management. Clear? Now see, if any of the asset is not working, it is not in active use. Auditor will discuss the same with the management, and he will ask the management, management, see, this PPE is not in active use. So there is a need to delete such PPE from the schedule of the PPE. Okay? But yes, as any addition to PPE takes place only after the approval of the authorized personnel, same way any deletion in the PPE will happen only after the approval of the authorized personnel. Further, see, once an item of PPE has been deleted, obviously the company is not going to charge depreciation on that from the date of such deletion. Okay? So auditor will verify all that thing. Okay? So देखो, approval तो चाहिए ना. Yes, absolutely correct. Jyoti is saying, ma'am, like in college, chair name of college is written, है ना? So that is what the tagging is done. ठीक है? And obviously कोई भी addition deletion ऐसे कोई भी staff of the client थोड़ी ना जाके उसको बेच देगा. There must be some approval ना. ठीक है? So auditor will consider that. ठीक है? Now with respect to completeness, है ना? So auditor will obtain what? The PPE schedule. He will ask the management कि management मेरे को opening, additions, deletions और closing balance जो है उसका schedule बना के दो. And then the same will be compared with the figures that are coming in the books of accounts in the PPE accounts. ठीक है? And since this is a formula, auditor will check what? Arithmetical accuracy. अब देखो opening balance को कहाँ से check कर सकते हो आप? Previous year audited financial statement को. Same. ठीक है? Previous year audited financial statement, whether the same has been correctly brought forward or not. Tell me, additions during the year को कहाँ से check कर सकते हो? Quickly send in your replies. अभी discuss भी किया. So I need answers definitely from all of you. ओपनिंग को हमने देखा, क्या देखा? दैट वी आर वेरीफाइंग इट फ्रॉम द ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑफ द प्रीवियस ईयर, है ना? वहां पर क्लोजिंग आ रहा होगा, वही आपका ओपनिंग होगा, तो ऑडिटर विल कंसीडर दैट. नाउ विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द एडिशंस, ठीक है? सो अगेन परचेज इनवॉइस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द पीपी आइटम्स अदर देन व्हाट? लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग वेयर यू हैव द टाइटल डीड्स. ठीक है? बहुत सिंपल है और बहुत लॉजिकल है. देखो, ट्राई टू विजुअलाइज योरसेल्फ इन अ सिचुएशन whereby you have been asked to verify, let's say, the additions that have happened during the year with respect to PPE of your client, है ना? तो आप पहले क्या बोलोगे? Client to know, give me a list of all the additions. ठीक है? Now आपको पता है AS10 में क्या क्राइटेरिया है as to when a particular thing is to be considered as a PPE. Auditor will see whether that criteria is met or not. ठीक है? Now, with respect to spare parts, standby equipments, or any of the servicing equipment, they will be recognized as PPE if, as per AS10, the same is been held by the client for more than one period, 1 year. ठीक है? If the same has been purchased with the purpose of holding it for more than 1 year, है ना? तो again, in terms of AS10, auditor will see whether it is meeting the criteria to be recognized as PPE. ठीक है? Further, you all know that cost of day-to-day servicing will not be considered as a capital expenditure. Auditor will check the purchase invoices, installation certificates, है ना? Purchase invoice, installation certificate से आपको date of addition पता चलेगा ना? Same way, auditor will see that whether these additions are approved by the appropriate authority. ऐसे थोड़ी ना कोई भी जाके कोई भी मशीनरी खरीद लेगा. It needs to be approved ना. So auditor will consider that. Now, see, before the company buys the property, plant and equipment, देखो जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंसर्न्स होती है ना, वहाँ 5 CR 10 CR बहुत महंगी महंगी मशीनरीज होती हैं, क्रेन्स होती हैं, है ना? So before buying that, auditor will see that whether the company is having a proper internal process or procedure with respect to what? Inviting the competitive quotation. ऐसा तो नहीं है that the company is purchasing all the, let's say, cranes from a related party at a very high price, है ना? So whether the company has the process of inviting competitive quotation, मतलब 4-5 लोगों से पहले मंगवाएंगे ना कि आप बताओ आप ये क्रेन किस रेट पर दे रहे हो हमें. So the purchase price should not be prejudicial to the interest of the company, है ना? कंपनी के बेनिफिट में ही होना चाहिए. ठीक है? Same way, whether the company is floating tenders or not, and this should happen prior to finalizing the vendor. Auditor will check what? All the supporting documents. Let's say if any requisition request has been raised, certain mails are sent to various vendors, auditor will check that. If the replies are received, auditor will check that, है ना? So auditor will check all that process. ठीक है? So you can always get a question, है ना? 4 mark का question बहुत easily बन सकता है ना, that you are conducting the audit of a company manufacturing cranes, है ना? So it is having huge plant and machinery. So what is the audit procedures in order to verify the additions to plant and machinery that has taken place during the year? ठीक है? Simple है, logical है. ठीक है? Same way with respect to deletion. है ना. अब आई टोल्ड यू कि ऐसे थोड़ी ना कोई प्लांट एंड मशीनरी मेरा मन कर रहा है मैंने बेच दी, ऐसे थोड़ी ना हो जाएगा. देयर मस्ट बी सम प्रॉपर अप्रूवल ना एप्रोप्रिएट अथॉरिटी से. देयर मस्ट बी सम रीजन ना, है ना. व्हाट इज द रीजन, व्हाट इज द रैशनल, व्हाट इज द मैनर ऑफ डिस्पोजल. मैनेजमेंट का अप्रूवल है नहीं. जो डिस्कार्ड नोड है, डिस्कार्ड इज व्हेन यू आर रिमूविंग इट, है ना. सो दैट मस्ट बी हैविंग द रीजन एज टू व्हाई द सेम इज बीन रिमूव्ड, है ना. एंड वेदर द इंटरनल प्रोसेस इज देयर अगेन फॉर इनवाइटिंग द कोटेशंस, है ना. आप किसी को भी थोड़ी ना बेच दोगे. इट माइट हैपन दैट द कंपनी हैज सोल्ड द मशीनरी टू अ रिलेटेड पार्टी एट अ वेरी लेस प्राइस, व्हाई, है ना, और लेट्स से एट अ वेरी हाई प्राइस, व्हाई सो. ठीक है. एंड ऑडिटर विल सी वेदर द कंपनी हैज एक्यूरेटली रिकॉर्डेड द डिलीशन. अब डिलीशन किस अमाउंट पे आपका आएगा, ओरिजिनल कॉस्ट माइनस द एक्यूमुलेटेड डेप्रिसिएशन अप टू द डेट ऑफ डिस्पोजल एंड द करस्पॉन्डिंग the resultant gain on or loss on the sale of that asset, whether that has been appropriately accounted for in the books of account or not. ठीक है, सिंपल है ना. इनवाइटिंग कोटेशंस क्या होता है, आप सबसे पूछोगे ना, आप 4-5 वेंडर्स से, यू विल आस्क 4-5 वेंडर्स दैट ओके गिव अस द कोटेशन दैट इज एट व्हाट प्राइस you are willing to sell your machinery to us, है ना. So auditor will see whether there is some internal process with respect to that or not. ठीक है. तो डिलीशन के लिए भी यू मे गेट अ 4 मार्कर क्वेश्चन. अब वैल्यूएशन, एज आई टोल्ड यू विद रिस्पेक्ट टू ट्रेड रिसीवेबल, कि जब भी मैं ट्रेड रिसीवेबल का इफ यू आस्क मी अबाउट वैल्यूएशन, प्रोविजन कम्स टू माय माइंड. सेम वे विद रिस्पेक्ट टू वैल्यूएशन ऑफ पीपीई, डेप्रिसिएशन एक्सेप्ट फॉर फ्री होल्ड लैंड, है ना. फ्री होल्ड लैंड इज नेवर डेप्रिशिएटेड ना. सो डेप्रिसिएशन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द all items, whether depreciation has been charged on all items except for freehold land. What is the method? Is it SLM, WDV? Impairment assessment. Quickly, वैसे तो it is mentioned here. So in terms of AS 28, whether the impairment has been done if it is required. Now, what is this? Let us just do this valuation part. Let us have a look at this valuation part from the module. So students, tell me जितना भी अभी तक हमने समझा है, whether it is clear or not. I'll definitely take you through the module, है ना. अभी तो we are just having a discussion. Quickly send in your replies. You all must be aware ना कि depreciation क्या होता है, why depreciation is charged, है ना. So the value of fixed assets, PPE, depreciates due to efflux of time. Efflux is what? Passage, use or obsolescence, है ना. ठीक है. The diminution in the value represents the item of cost to the entity for earning revenue during the given period. Unless this cost in the form of depreciation is charged to the accounts, the profit and loss would not be correctly ascertained, and the values of PP would be shown at a higher amounts. So क्या करना है? Auditor will verify whether the entity has charged depreciation on all items of PPE unless the same is what? Freehold land. Assess that depreciation method reflects the pattern in which the asset's future economic benefits are expected to be consumed, like your straight line WDV. The auditor should verify whether the management has done an impairment assessment to determine whether the item is impaired in terms of AS 28. Then now what is impairment? See, the carrying amount, that is the amount at which the asset is coming in the financial statement, in the balance sheet. If it is less than the recoverable amount, just a minute. If the carrying amount is more than the recoverable amount, that means the asset is coming at a higher value than the amount which can be recovered after selling that asset, है ना. even after providing the depreciation, this is carrying amount is what? The amount after providing the depreciation. If it is more than the recoverable amount, the amount which the entity will get if it sells it in the market, then iska kya matlab hai? That the value is shown is higher now. So the asset needs to be impaired in terms of AS 28. So what is impairment? It is the procedure that needs to be followed when there is a reduction in the value of asset, so as to ensure that the carrying amount of the asset, that is the value at which it is appearing in the balance sheet, it does not exceed the recoverable amount, है ना? क्योंकि मार्केट में जा रहे हो तो आपको 1 CR मिलेगा, आपकी बैलेंस शीट में आफ्टर प्रोवाइडिंग फॉर डेप्रिसिएशन इट इज कमिंग एट 3 CR, तो दिस इज नॉट करेक्ट ना, द एसेट नीड टू बी इम्पेयर्ड, ठीक है? सो ऑडिटर विल सी दैट, ठीक है? इज इट क्लियर, है ना? नाउ व्हाट इज द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक? With respect to rights, as you all have said, that purchase invoice देखेंगे, conveyance deed and sale deed किसके केस में देखेंगे? लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग के केस में, है ना? ओरिजिनल टाइटल डीड्स देखेंगे if they are given as a security, तो auditor will request the management for obtaining confirmation from the respective lenders, है ना? That give us a confirmation that the original title deeds are with you, and when any of the asset has been given as a security, then the same shall be adjusted in the register of charges and the same shall be registered with the ROC. Simple, ठीक है? Now we'll do one thing, है ना? जो भी आपका doubt I'll take up from the module. We will go through the module, and after having a look at the module with respect to the topics of PPV that we have covered, we will discuss disclosure and the notes also. Okay. So before that, let me have a look at the queries. Yes, G.R. Kanak Harini, you are correct. Inventory, Anuradha, if the time will permit, we will revise it at the end of the session again. Please remind me. So, is it clear? Chalo, PPE. So it says that valuation of PPE is a very important aspect. Auditor needs to analyze that the expenditure incurred in PPE, whether it is revenue or capital in nature. So what will qualify as capital expenditure? Acquisition cost of the asset, additions to the asset that increases earning capacity, benefits derived which are long-term in nature, and expenditure incurred to minimize the cost of production. And I told you that wages, freight inwards, legal expenses, these are what revenue expenditure. But when wages are incurred on installation of a machinery, or legal expense with respect to purchase of machine, land and building, freight inwards with respect to purchase of asset. So in order to bring into existence the capital, the asset, certain expenditure has been incurred. So that will be considered as what? Your capital expenditure, right? But regular repairs on assets, these will be charged off to the P&L. Simple hai. See, you can very well, you can always get a true false or MCQ, है ना? बहुत easily you will be able to answer it. Now with respect to existence assertion. So auditor will review the entity's plan for performing the physical verification of PPE, whether own staff kar raha hai ya third party. See, it might be possible that they have certain complex machinery, whereby some third staff, the third party, the process of physical verification has been outsourced. So auditor will see what is that process and also consider the periodicity. Annual basis pe ho raha hai, once in 2 years ho raha hai ya 3 years pe ho raha hai. Supervision is required. Auditor will see. Whatever reports, working sheets are there, auditor will consider as to whether all items are tagged, they carry the identification mark, and these physical verification work papers should capture the identification numbers for the asset. The same will be compared with what? The fixed asset registered, and all the additions should be updated in the fixed asset register. In case of any discrepancy noticed, the same will be discussed with the management, right? For example, see, Identified shortages or asset not in working condition or active use should be accounted for deletion. अगर कोई asset is not in active use तो management से discuss करो ना कि management इसको delete कर दो ना. Post approval by entities management and depreciation should cease to be charged after the date of deletion. With respect to the completeness assertion, auditor will obtain what? A schedule whereby opening from the management class wise, like for plant and machinery, for furniture fittings, for building, everything. Opening balances, addition during the year, deletions during the year, and the closing balances. And whatever closing balance will come, tally it with the books of accounts. Check the mathematical accuracy, right? ओपनिंग बैलेंस को आप प्रीवियस ईयर ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट से चेक कर सकते हो. एडिशंस के लिए क्या करोगे? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ऑब्टेन अ लिस्ट फॉर ऑल मटेरियल एडिशन एंड सी ऑब्टेन अ लिस्ट, राइट? दिस इज द पॉइंट. देन सी वेदर दे मीट द क्राइटेरिया एज रिक्वायर्ड इन AS 10, है ना? अभी हमने ये पढ़ा ना, व्हाट ऑल इज कैपिटलाइज्ड, सो ऑडिटर विल कंसीडर दैट, राइट? देन in audit, this cost includes cost incurred till to construct an item, है ना? Cost incurred subsequently to replace it or service it. ठीक है? Now, day-to-day servicing will not be included. Purchase invoice को check कर सकते हो, installation certificate को in order to see the date of addition. ठीक है? Verify that these are what? Approved, है ना? Simple points है ना? Logical है ना? ठीक है. So Dhyanesh, your doubt will be clear when we will be doing notes of PPE. Proper internal processes है नहीं for inviting competitive quotation, floating tenders before finalizing, prior to finalizing the vendors, है ना? In relation to deletion, again, what are the reasons? What is the rationale? Manner of disposal क्या है? Approval management का discard note authorizing the disposal, है ना? Verify that the procedure followed for sale, है ना? Again, inviting the competitive quotation and everything, whether the management has accurately recorded the deletion and the resultant gain. Deletion कैसे? Original cost minus accumulated depreciation, that value will be considered, and the price at which it has been sold, it will be reduced, and ultimately the gain or loss will come. ठीक है? Valuation we have all seen from the module. With respect to rights, in addition to the procedures undertaking with respect to completeness, जो completeness में आपने verification with respect to completeness assertion, whatever audit procedures were performed, with respect to rights, these are the additional procedures that will be performed along with those procedures. So PPE के purchase invoices देखने हैं, land and building के title deeds, conveyance deed, sale deed देखना है. If originals are not available, है ना? If they are not available, then ask the management, request entities management for obtaining a confirmation from the respective lenders that they are holding the original title deeds. ठीक है? In addition, the auditor shall also verify the register of charges if any asset has been given as what? The security. Clear? Quickly tell me, is it clear? Simple है ना? Logical है ना? Now, with respect to disclosure, again, Schedule 3, Part 1 to the Companies Act 2013, it gives the disclosure requirements. Who will disclose give these disclosure with respect to PPE? Management. Who will verify them? The auditor, right? बहुत simple है, but very, very important, है ना? So the heading is property, plant and equipment, and classification will be land, building, plant and machinery, furniture, fixtures, vehicles, office equipment, others. ठीक है? If any asset is under lease, obviously it will not come here now. Then it shall be separately specified under each class of the asset because it is under what? Lease. ठीक है? Right? Now, first of all, have a look at this point. With respect to each class of PPE, be it land, be it building, be it plant and machinery, the company needs to mention has to disclose the reconciliation of gross and net carrying amounts at the beginning and at the end of the reporting period. What is meant by that? Opening balance of gross carrying amount. Whatever additions to machinery has been done, let's take example of machinery. If there have been any acquisitions through business combinations, mergers, acquisitions, if there has been any sale, if there has been any sale disposal through demergers, if any other adjustment has been made, if borrowing costs are capitalized, your AS16, Hana, and then the closing balance. Also, with respect to each class of the PPE, the company needs to give detail of what the depreciation and the impairment. Okay. So the company needs to mention what is the opening accumulated depreciation, what is the charge for the year, if any deduction or regular adjustment is there during the year, that needs to mention, and closing accumulated depreciation. Same way with respect to PPE, with whether the entity has disclosed opening accumulated impairment losses during the year, impairment reversals, and closing accumulated impairment losses. Is it clear? ठीक है. So simple है ना. अभी तक हमने क्या देखा that with respect to each class of PPE, first of all separately आप disclose करोगे land, building, plant and machinery, everything, and if it is held under lease, that shall be disclosed separately. Opening, a reconciliation of the gross and net carrying amounts at the beginning and at the end of the year will be given. ठीक है. ये वाला point, this is basically related to this only, but there is one additional point. It says a reconciliation of gross and net carrying amounts of each class of assets at the beginning and at the end of the reporting period, showing the additions, disposal, acquisition through business combinations, amount of change due to revaluation, and other adjustments and related depreciation, impairment shall be disclosed separately. ये तो अभी आपने पढ़ा ना, उसका बस tabular representation we have seen. Further it says कि revaluation का कब दिखाएंगे? Very important, है ना? So if the change in the amount of the asset is 10% or more, even if it is valued up or down, if the change is 10% or more, then only such change will be shown here. If change is 10% or more in the aggregate of net carrying value of each of property, plant and equipment, then that will be shown here. Clear? 10% or more, है ना? If let's say 100 का value है और आपको 115 पे revalue हुआ है, तो this will be shown. But अगर ये आपका 105 पर ही revalue हुआ है, less than 10%, it will not be shown separately. ठीक है? Is it clear? ठीक है? Is it clear? Where any sums have been written off on reduction of capital. If you remember, when we did reduction of capital, we saw that there can be a situation in case of loss-making company where the assets are where the share capital is not represented by the assets. Hana? So in that case, basically the assets are what? Overvalued. So they are written back. They are written back in case of reduction of capital. Or there may be a situation where there is upward revaluation of the assets. Okay? In such a case, this is saying whenever any revaluation is done, okay, then in that case, with respect to all the balance sheets subsequent to such revaluation, the revalued amount will be considered. Obviously, है ना, जो revalued है, that will be considered subsequently, na? Correct? Further, it says that for first 5 years subsequent to the date of such reduction or increase, for first 5 years subsequent to the date of such reduction or increase, तो पहले 5 सालों के लिए ना बैलेंस शीट में आपको सेपरेटली क्या डिस्क्लोज करना है? That what is the amount of such reduction or revaluation along with the date, है ना? तो हमने क्या बोला? देखो इसको रीड करते हैं. Where sums have been written off on a reduction of capital or revaluation of assets, where sums have been added on revaluation of assets, every balance sheet subsequent to the date of such write-off or addition shall show the reduced or increased figures as applicable. Obviously ना, अब revalue हो गया तो revalued figures आएंगे ना, whether this is reduced or increased. ठीक है? And तो ये दो बातें हैं. एक तो ये है. Second, and by way of a note, also show the amount of the reduction or increase as applicable together with the date. तो कितना amount revalue हुआ and क्या date था thereof for the first 5 years subsequent to the date of such reduction or increase. पहले 5 सालों के लिए वो आप नोट में मेंशन करोगे कि during this on this date इतना amount was revalued. On this date every year for 5 years subsequently to the date of such reduction or increase. Clear? ठीक है? Is it clear? Clear? ठीक है? So with this, we have done what? The disclosure requirements with respect to the property, plant and equipment. I hope it is clear. Okay. Now there are certain notes with respect to property, plant and equipment. So we will do one thing. We will take a break of 10 minutes here. And after the break, we will start with these notes. But before going for the break, students, please send in your queries if any you have, and also please tell me whether this inventory part that we have done today and the verification of PPE, whether it is clear or not. कोई भी doubt है तो please send it to me. I'll definitely answer your queries. ठीक है? So a break of 10 minutes here. So students, I hope you all are back after the break. So there is a doubt with respect to impairment. See, impairment. So, see, a plant and machinery comes in the balance sheet after reducing what? After providing for depreciation, and the value that comes is what? Carrying amount. Okay? Let's say it is 3 CR. Okay? Now, the recoverable value or the fair value that the company can get if it sells the such plant and machinery is just 1 CR. So this 3 CR, it is not showing the correct picture now. See, it might be possible now that since there has been some change in the government policy, so there is some impact or some new technology has come. So this plant and machinery is now worth the recoverable value, the fair value in the market is just 1 CR. So now depreciation has been provided. Now this plant and machinery, it needs to be what? Impaired. That is, this carrying amount should not exceed the recoverable value. तभी तो वो true picture show करेगा ना, है ना? So this is what impairment as per AS 28. ठीक है? Is it clear, Ramnivas? Is it clear? So when there is a drastic reduction in the recoverable amount of fixed asset, it may occur when there is a change in legal or economic circumstances surrounding the company. है ना? So impairment. The company will do what? Impairment. The procedure that need to be followed when there is a reduction in the value of the asset so as to ensure that the carrying amount of the asset does not exceed the recoverable amount of the asset. Clear? Is it clear? Okay. Now we'll be doing various notes with respect to the property, plant and equipment. And once we are done with the entire process with respect to the property, plant and equipment, now you will see that intangible asset is exactly the same except for few differences. Okay? So let us start. Now with respect to immovable property. So these are what? These are the information that the company is required to show in the notes to accounts. As per Schedule 3, the recent amendments that are effective from 1st April 2021. So these are the additional regulatory disclosure requirements that the company are required to give. So with respect to immovable property, your land, building, where the title deeds, वैसे तो देखो title deeds of the building should be held in the name of the company, तभी तो rights assertion is established. So this point says when the title deeds of immovable property are not held in the name of the company, तो क्या करना है? ठीक है? And this point is not talking about lease. Lease वाला point तो यहाँ आएगा ही नहीं ना, because we have seen that if any of the property is on lease, then it shall, if any of the property is on lease, it shall be shown separately. So this says that the company shall provide the details of all immovable property other than property where company is a lessee and lease agreements are executed in favor of lessee. Why? Because वहां पर तो in the name of the company होगा ही नहीं ना, because that land or building has been taken in the taken on lease. ठीक है? So this point is not talking about lease. अब देखो ना, that title deed of the immovable property is not in the name of the company और ये lease भी नहीं है, still that immovable property is coming in the books of accounts, है ना? Whose title deeds are not held in the name of the company and where such immovable property is jointly held with others, then the company is required to give certain information in a tabular format. What is this? बहुत simple है, देखो. Relevant line item in the balance sheet, like वो PPE है या investment property है और PPE from retired from active use, held for disposal है और others, ठीक है. Then description of the item of property, land and building है, वैसे तो land and building ही रहेगा because this is talking about what? Immovable property. What is the gross carrying value? Title deeds, whether these are held in the name of the company, yes or no. Whether title deed holder is a promoter. So if it is not held in the name of the company, so whether the title deed holder is the promoter or the director or the relative of promoter director or employee of promoter director. ठीक है? Property held since which date? And the reasons why the same is not held in the name of the company. है ना? देखो, if some property has been shown in the balance sheet, so the title deed should have been in the name of the company, na? ठीक है, lease पे तो we are not talking about the property which has been immovable property which has been taken on lease. So now what is the reason? है ना? So what is the gross valuing amount? Title deeds held in the name of, see यहाँ पे it will be mentioned like Mr. Ram or Mr. Sham, किसके name में it is held, and that person, whether that is a director, promoter, relative of promoter director, employee of promoter director, है ना? Since which date and what is the reason? Is there any dispute? है ना? And here the relative will be as defined in Companies Act, promoter will be as defined in the Companies Act 2013. ठीक है? Now, students, you can always get a question that what are the regulatory disclosure requirements with respect to title deeds of immovable property not held in the name of the company. Or you may get a case study like you are conducting the audit of so and so company which is manufacturing cranes, and the company is having building. During the course of audit, when you were establishing the rights assertion, the audit team found that the immovable property is not held in the name of the company. So what disclosure will you look for in the books of accounts of in the notes to accounts of the company? So these are the disclosure requirements. ठीक है? So what is the gross value, carrying value? किसके name पे है और जिसके भी name पे है, who is that person? ठीक है? कब से है and what is the reason? Clear? ठीक है? Is it clear? ठीक है? Now here, if you remember, we have done that revaluation. If it is 10% or more, then such amount shall be disclosed separately. Another point relating to revaluation, it says that such revaluation should be based on valuation by a registered valuer as defined under Rule 2 of the Companies Act. So, यहाँ पर company will by itself mention that whether the company has the property, plant and equipment, whether it has been revalued by a registered valuer. So, if it is not, then also the company will mention that it is not revalued by a registered valuer. है ना? And then auditor will verify whether the same is as per the requirements or not. So, ये disclosure requirement है. So, read it again. The company shall disclose as to whether the revaluation is based on the valuation by a registered valuer as defined under Rule 2 of Companies Registered Valuers and Valuation Rule 2017. देखो पहले तो क्या होता था, the auditor used to ask the management कि management ये information दे दो, management ये information दे दो. Now Schedule 3 to the Companies Act has imposed certain responsibility on the management कि management तुम खुद ही notes to accounts में disclose कर दो. And then the auditor is going to verify that. ठीक है? ठीक है? Now, very, very important. है ना? Straight question. Capital work in progress with respect to PPE. What are the regulatory disclosure requirements? है ना? So, for capital work in progress, following aging schedule shall be given. So, capital work in progress है. देखो जहां पर हमने यहाँ पर ये पढ़ा ना कि PPE the immovable property is not held in the name of the company. देखो it is what? It is a risky situation ना. शेयर होल्डर्स ने अपना पैसा दिया ना कंपनी को कि आप इससे प्रॉफिट अर्न करो, इससे आप अपना इन्वेस्ट करो, लाइक प्रॉपर्टीज खरीदो, इससे आपको जो ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज करनी है करो. Though that money has been utilized, but the property is not in the name of the company. तो management को क्या बोला गया by Schedule 3 कि you need to give that disclosure in the notes to accounts. This disclosure is very much important for the shareholders, है ना? And students, you will see whatever disclosure requirements are there ना, that is basically for the shareholders to know as to where their funds is been utilized. उनका जो पैसा है जो कंपनी में है वो कहाँ एक्चुअली है, कहाँ ब्लॉक्ड है ना, whether everything is going as per rules or regulations or not, है ना. तो मैनेजमेंट के ऊपर ही रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है that they need to what गिव दिस डिस्क्लोजर इन द नोट्स टू अकाउंट्स, है ना. और जो अगर रिवैल्यूएशन किया है तो वो रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यू से हुआ या नहीं, है ना, ये इंफॉर्मेशन मैनेजमेंट खुद ही लिखेगा, नहीं भी हुआ तो भी लिखेगा. ठीक है. नाउ विद रिस्पेक्ट टू कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस, है ना, कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस. ठीक है. सो सी इफ एनी ऑफ द पीपीई इज अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन, है ना, इफ एनी ऑफ द पीपीई इज नॉट रेडी, ठीक है, एनी फैक्ट्री इज अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन. अब देखो वो कितने टाइम से अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन है. अगेन द सेम लॉजिक ना, रिस्क है ना. देखो शेयर होल्डर्स का पैसा है, मोर देन 3 years से दैट आइटम इज कमिंग इन कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस. तो शेयर होल्डर्स मस्ट नो ना वेयर देयर फंड्स आर ब्लॉक्ड. लिक्विडिटी क्रंच तो नहीं है ना, क्यों काम नहीं चल रहा है, कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस में इतना पुराना पैसा क्यों रखा हुआ है, लाइक बेसिकली व्हाई द फंड्स आर ब्लॉक्ड. ठीक है, व्हाई दिस इज नॉट पीपीई. ठीक है. सो फॉर कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस फॉलोइंग एजिंग शेड्यूल शैल बी गिवन. तो सिविप एजिंग शेड्यूल. सो अमाउंट इन कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस फॉर अ पीरियड ऑफ less than 1 year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, more than 3 years. Projects in progress, है ना. What are the projects in progress and projects temporarily suspended? Let's say any project is temporarily suspended on account of, let's say, COVID pandemic. ठीक है. So even if any of the projects are temporarily suspended, then what is the time period for which they are into CIVIP, है ना. बिकॉज शेयर होल्डर्स को पता होना चाहिए ना कि उनका पैसा अगर कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस में आ रहा है तो दे विल हैव टू कंसीडर ना कि कितना प्रोग्रेस है उसका, वेदर दैट पीपीई विल एक्चुअली मटेरियलाइज और नॉट, है ना. आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? ठीक है. सेम वे, सो टोटल ऑफ दिस कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस इट शैल टैली विद द अमाउंट दैट इज शोन इन द बैलेंस शीट. ठीक है. नाउ विद रिस्पेक्ट टू सिविप, ये क्या था, कितने टाइम से इट वाज पेंडिंग, और ये वाला क्या है, अगर सिविप में है तो हाउ मच टाइम यू एक्सपेक्ट कि इट विल गेट कंप्लीटेड. ठीक है. फॉर कैपिटल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस whose completion is overdue, let's say आपको the company was supposed to complete some project in 2 years, है ना. 2.5 years have been completed, but this project is still CIVIP, है ना. So for capital work in progress whose completion is overdue or has exceeded its cost, 2 CR was the estimated cost, but already 2.5 CR लग चुका है and it is still in CIVIP, है ना, compared to the original plan, following completion schedule shall be given. To be completed in लेस देन 1 year में कंप्लीट कर दोगे, 1 to 2 years में कंप्लीट कर दोगे, 2 to 3 years में कर दोगे, मोर देन 3 years में कर दोगे. प्रोजेक्ट वाइज डिटेल हैज टू बी गिवन. डिटेल्स ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट्स where activity has been suspended shall be given separately. Again, if any activity has been suspended due to any reason, the same shall be shown separately. ठीक है. So are you able to understand what is the लॉजिक, है ना. देखो क्या होता है, कंपनी शेयर होल्डर्स ने कंपनी में पैसा दिया, वो पैसा मैनेजमेंट ने बड़े सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स में लगाया. अब वो वहां पर जाके सिविप में द फंड्स हैव बीन ब्लॉक्ड, तो शेयर होल्डर्स मस्ट नो ना वेयर देयर फंड्स आर ब्लॉक्ड, वेदर ये एक्चुअली मटेरियलाइज होगा भी या नहीं, है ना. सो फॉर दिस द मैनेजमेंट हैज बीन गिवन अ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कि आपको खुद से ये डिस्क्लोजर देना है. पहले आप क्या बता रहे हो कि कितना सिविक कितने टाइम से पेंडिंग है ना. फिर आप क्या बता रहे हो कि आपको क्या लगता है कि कब आप उसको कंप्लीट कर सकते हो. टू बी कंप्लीटेड इन लेस देन 1 year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years एंड मोर देन 3 years एक्सपेक्टेड टू कंप्लीट देम. ठीक है. ठीक है. बिकॉज अनलेस एंड अनटिल आपका पीपी मटेरियलाइज नहीं होगा, वो रेवेन्यू जनरेट करना स्टार्ट नहीं करेगा ना. लेकिन आपके फंड्स तो ब्लॉक्ड हैं आपके से, आई मीन द शेयर होल्डर्स फंड्स, सो दे हैव अ राइट टू नो ना. सो मैनेजमेंट has been given responsibility to themselves mention in the notes to accounts ki this is the situation. Clear? Is it clear? Quickly send in your replies. So with this, we have finished the verification procedures, audit procedures with respect to all the assertion relating to property, plant and equipment. Quickly tell me, is it clear? Batao. So we have started the notes also, है ना? Share capital और borrowings के notes अभी we haven't done. That we'll be doing it in the next session, है ना? जब balance sheet items हो जाएंगे, after that we will complete all the notes. Then only we'll proceed with the P&L item. ठीक है? Students, I need answer. समझ आ रहा है? Understanding देखो. These are certain new points. वहां पर I am devoting good time, है ना? वहां पे we are discussing everything in a very slow speed, है ना? Rest of the points which we have covered, yes, we are touching upon each and everything in this module, है ना? The speed may vary, ठीक है? I hope you are finding it correct, the speed. So Priyanka, what do you want to say? Before starting the next topic, what should I do? अच्छा MCQ ठीक है, we can have that MCQ session. So see, one of you is asking, Mr. Choksi is saying, ma'am, is it advisable to prepare handwritten notes? See, for this chapter now, student, I have asked you to summarize here. A lot of space is given. Why? Because this is a very lengthy chapter. 114 pages ka hai. Like even if you exclude the summary part, ठीक है? Then also it is more than 110 pages. ठीक है? So it is better that you summarize it or you highlight the keywords. Why? Because such summarization, such keywords, or you just mark whatever is new, whatever you want to learn, because that is going to help you for preparing your exam. That is going to help you when you will be revising this subject at the point of your examination. So the way you like, if you want to make handwritten notes, that is up to you. But what I feel is like, see, I have always told you, है ना, कि जैसे यहाँ पर अगर आपको समरी बनाना है, so completeness के लिए देखना है ना, तो you can always write कि PPE के लिए purchase invoices देखना है, land and building के लिए conveyance deed and sale deed देखना है, फिर ये देखना है originals है या नहीं, है ना? This is the way you can make the summary. अगर originals नहीं है, and then auditor should request the management, है ना? So like this, you can make the summaries. The way you feel comfortable, you should proceed like that. ठीक है? Now intangible asset, and again my query to all of you, what AS number comes to your mind? Give me certain examples of intangible assets without looking at the module. Meanwhile, I'll have a look at the queries that you are sending. So Bidan, you can send in your queries here only where you have sent in this message. I'll have a look at it and I'll reply it to you. Dhyanish, yes. So accordingly, shareholders will take informed decision ना कि क्या करना है, ठीक है? Yes, Talin, I'll definitely help you. Hana, once we complete a major chunk of this chapter, we'll definitely discuss as to how to present the answers. Acha, Priyanka has asked me to discuss the MCQs. I forgot that. So we'll do one thing, we'll finish with intangible assets because these are very much similar to the verification procedures, audit procedures we have done for PPE. बहुत minute सा change है. We'll complete it and then we'll move on to the MCQs. Okay, Priyanka? So AS20, absolutely correct. Piyush, Miss Mr. Mishra, Ayushi, Chitala, Valarmathi, Priyanka, Dhyanesh. Absolutely correct. And the various examples are software, copyrights, trademark, patent, which is absolutely correct. Okay? Now, so what are intangible assets? So intangible assets are identifiable assets. Identifiable, so it means that you can identify as to what revenue they are generating. ठीक है? Non-monetary assets. जैसे monetary asset आपका कौन सा हो गया? Debtors, जहां से you will receive the amount back. Your loans, है ना? These are what? Non-monetary assets. ठीक है? Without the physical substance, you cannot look, you cannot see them, you cannot touch them, है ना? Which are either held for use in production or supply of goods or services, for rental to others, or for administrative purposes. Take example of software. So if you are using it in production or supply of goods or services, you are manufacturing computers and you're putting that software into this computer. So you're selling the software along with the goods or services, or you're giving that software for rent to others, or you're using it for some administrative purpose. So this is what an intangible asset. Okay? Example is your goodwill, your software, your trademarks, patents, copyright. ये सब पढ़ा है ना? And the relevant AS is what? AS 26. Okay? As to whether to recognize an asset as an intangible asset, what is the criteria? The way AS 10 talks about the PPE, property, plant and equipment, AS 26 we have for the intangible assets. Clear? Okay? Okay? Now the verification will be same, है ना? But देखो हमने जब existence किया था property, plant and equipment का, the first point we discussed is physical verification, है ना? And if you remember physical verification में I draw this thing, है ना? ये हमारा auditor होता है ना? And there are some management personnel, फिर management होता है supervise करने के लिए. But यहाँ पर तो these are what? These are intangible assets are what? Without the physical substance. तो किसको verify करोगे? Without the physical substance है ना? आप software को देख थोड़ी ना सकते हो, copyright को, है ना? So, but have a look at the definition again. Use in the production or supply of goods and services. तो हम देख सकते हैं ना कि जिस computer में it has been used, whether that computer is been sold along with that software or not, है ना? Whether rent income is coming from that software is not, or not, whether it has been used for the administrative purpose or not, है ना? So basically we are seeing whether this intangible asset is in active use or not, है ना? अब आप eyes से तो नहीं देख सकते हो, but you will perform what? So auditor will verify whether it is in active use in production, supply या rent or production or supply of goods and services, or for rental to others, or for administrative purposes. ठीक है? For example, software का existence कैसे आप verify कर सकते हो? Sale of related goods or services in which that software has been used, है ना? If it is not in active use, अब same चलेगा जैसे हमने PPE में किया था. It shall be deleted after the approval, and your PPE is what? They are depreciated. है ना? What is the term for intangible assets? They are what? They are, quickly send in your replies, they are amortized. है ना? So we will see that after any of the PPE has been deleted, the amortization charge will cease from the date of amortization. Yes, Chitala, you are absolutely correct. है ना? अब एडिशन के लिए इफ यू रिमेंबर वी हैव सीन, अच्छा कंप्लीटनेस के लिए क्या था, सेम विल फॉलो दैट, ओपनिंग क्या है, ऑब्टेन अ लिस्ट शेड्यूल ऑफ ओपनिंग प्लस एडिशन माइनस डिलीशन इक्वल टू क्लोजिंग। ये जो क्लोजिंग आ रहा है इसको बैलेंस शीट से चेक करो, ओपनिंग को प्रीवियस ईयर से चेक करो, एडिशंस को आप ऑब्टेन अ लिस्ट, है ना। नाउ वहां क्या था, obtain a list and see whether it meets the criteria of AS10. Here it is what, whether it meets the criteria given in AS26. ठीक है। फर्दर वहां पर हम क्या देखते थे, रेवेन्यू होगा या कैपिटलाइज होगा। Here is what, no cost from research phase is to be recognized as intangible assets। देखो अभी तो रिसर्च फेज पे कोई खर्चा हो रहा है ना, तो अभी पता थोड़ी ना whether the intangible asset will be created or not, है ना। तो it will not be recognized as what, your intangible asset, but it will be charged to the P&L. ठीक है। As the entity cannot demonstrate that an intangible asset exists from the future economic benefits, whether the future economic benefits from this intangible assets are probable, अभी नहीं पता है ना। Why? Because this is still in the research phase, तो इसको P&L में चार्ज करेंगे। ठीक है। एंड वहां पर तो हम परचेज इनवॉइस, यहां पर भी परचेज इनवॉइस आएगा इन ऑर्डर टू सी एनी एडिशन। वाई? जैसे इफ एनी ऑफ द सॉफ्टवेयर हैज बीन परचेज, सो द परचेज इनवॉइस, और इफ एनी सॉफ्टवेयर हैज बीन डेवलप्ड देन सर्टिफिकेट, रिपोर्ट और डॉक्यूमेंट इन ऑर्डर टू वेरीफाई व्हाट इज द डेट ऑफ द यूज। ठीक है। वैल्यूएशन में जैसे डेप्रिसिएशन का आपने कंसीडर किया, यहां पे क्या आ जाएगा आपका, एमोर्टाइजेशन। राइट्स में यू वर लुकिंग एट द परचेज इनवॉइसेस, है ना, and your title deeds, यहाँ पे आ जाएगा। See if any software is been developed, तो कुछ खर्चे होंगे ना, तो expense invoice that should be in the name of the company। The purchase contract if any of the software has been purchased। Simple है ना, exactly on the same lines as we have done audit procedures with respect to verification of various assertions of PPE। ठीक है। Quickly let us have a look at the module with respect to all the assertions including disclosure, and then we will discuss the MCQ। ठीक है, समझ आ रहा है ना? Yes, Mr. Mishra, you are correct. Yes, Anuradha, you are also correct. So intangible asset is what? An identifiable non-monetary asset without physical substance, either held for use in production or supply of goods or services, or for rented to others, or for administrative purposes। ठीक है। The various examples are given here। ठीक है। Now with respect to the existence, since intangible asset is an identifiable non-monetary asset without physical substance, establishing the existence, the auditor should verify whether such intangible asset is in active use in the for the three purposes। For example, for verifying the existence of software, the auditor should verify whether such software is in active use by the entity, or for the purposes, the auditor should verify whether the sale of related goods or services during the period under audit in which such software has been used। Clear? If any of the asset is not in active use, then deletion should have been recorded। ठीक है। Post the approval, amortization charge should be ceased beyond the date of deletion। ठीक है। देखो एडिशन के लिए सेम है ना, ऑब्टेन स्केड्यूल, है ना, ओपनिंग, एडिशन, डिलीशन, क्लोजिंग, अरिथमेटिकल एक्यूरेसी चेक कर लो। एडिशंस के लिए आप लिस्ट ऑफ ऑल एडिशंस लो। देन और मटेरियल एडिशंस के लिए देखो रिकॉग्निशन क्राइटेरिया एज पर AS26 मीट हो रहा है नहीं। नो कॉस्ट रिलेटेड टू रिसर्च और फ्रॉम रिसर्च फेज गेट रिकॉग्नाइज्ड। अच्छा स्टूडेंट्स, जस्ट मार्क द पॉइंट्स विच आर डिफरेंट, है ना। तो एक तो आपका ये वाला पॉइंट है विच आई एम मार्किंग as double tick। ठीक है। then this is the point, ठीक है, and this is the point। check certificate और report, similar documentation, है ना, date of commencement के लिए। एडिशंस अगर है तो अप्रूव्ड बाय एप्रोप्रिएट अथॉरिटी होना चाहिए, है ना। बिफोर फाइनलाइजिंग देखो सब कुछ सेम है, इंटरनल कॉम्पिटिटिव कोटेशंस इनवाइट करने का प्रोसेस, एवरीथिंग इज सेम। डिस्पोजल है, व्हाट इज द रीजन, रैशनल, अप्रूवल, डिस्पोजल नोट, एवरीथिंग इज सेम, है ना। यहाँ पर भी आपका कॉम्पिटिटिव कोड स्टैंडर्ड्स, original cost less accumulated amortization, and whether the resultant gain or loss has been properly calculated। सेम है ना। वैल्यूएशन में आपका बस यहाँ क्या आएगा देखो, द डेप्रिसिएशन की जगह आपका आ जाएगा amortization, अदरवाइज एवरीथिंग इज सेम। वैल्यू ऑफ इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स में डिमिनिश ड्यू टू फ्लक्स ऑफ टाइम यूसेज, एवरीथिंग इज सेम, है ना। ऑल इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स पे आना चाहिए, व्हाट इज द मेथड, है ना. देन AS 28 के अकॉर्डिंग अमोर्टाइजेशन, सिंपल. राइट्स एंड ऑब्लिगेशंस का थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है. व्हाई? बिकॉज यहाँ पर आप लिखोगे कि जो आपके एक्सपेंस इनवॉइसेस हैं, ठीक है. So the auditor performing testing in addition should verify the expense invoices and the purchase contracts. ठीक है. Disclosure is same. Intangible asset will be the heading. Classification, goodwill, trademark, computer software. Must heads क्या होते हैं? Must heads. बताओ quickly. So these are titles of the magazine या newspaper के, है ना. उसका भी copy. These are called what? Must heads. टाइटल ऑफ न्यूज़पेपर और मैगजीन, ठीक है. माइनिंग राइट्स, कॉपीराइट, रेसिपी, फॉर्मूले, ये सब जो भी आएंगे. देन एंड अदर्स. रिकंसिलेशन देना ऑफ द ग्रॉस एंड नेट कैरिंग अमाउंट्स, एंड सेम अगर 10% और मोर है देन सेपरेटली टू बी डिस्क्लोज. अगर राइट ऑफ किया ड्यू टू रिडक्शन ऑफ कैपिटल या रिवैल्यूएशन में, देन subsequent to that balance sheet, सभी balance sheet में reduced या the upward valued amount आएगा. And for 5 years, first 5 years subsequent to the date of that balance sheet, you will mention the amount and the date. ठीक है, सेम है ना. देखो, फॉर ईच क्लास ऑफ द इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स, ओपनिंग, एडिशन, डिस्पोजल, इम्पायरमेंट, अदर एडजस्टमेंट्स. फॉर ईच क्लास यू विल गिव द डिटेल्स ऑफ amortization. ओपनिंग कितना था, चार्ज, डिडक्शन, क्लोजिंग, एंड ऑल्सो विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द accumulated depreciation, the disclosure will be given. ठीक है, इज इट क्लियर? नाउ विद रिस्पेक्ट टू योर नोट्स, intangible assets under development, है ना. तो CWIP again, for intangible assets under development, the following aging shall be given. So this is exactly the same, है ना. पढ़ा ना ये सब हमने. Same way, what when are you expecting to complete it? So for intangible assets under development whose completion is overdue or has exceeded its cost compared to the original plan, following intangible assets under development completion schedule shall be given, and this is exactly the same. ठीक है. So what are the differences? देखो, मैंने यहाँ पर जो शीट है ना, यहाँ पे सिर्फ differences mention किया. What? That physical verification तो हो नहीं सकता. So whether it is in active use, है ना. Whether for example सॉफ्टवेयर है तो whether that product has been sold, है ना. If it is not in active use तो deletion ये तो सेम ही है. ठीक है. एडिशंस के लिए AS 26 का क्राइटेरिया रिसर्च फेज का है, उसको आप रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करोगे, उसको चार्ज टू PNL करोगे. एंड यू विल सी द सर्टिफिकेट रिपोर्ट या डॉक्यूमेंटेशन. वहां क्या होता था, इंस्टॉलेशन सर्टिफिकेट, परचेज इनवॉइस, है ना, इन ऑर्डर टू सी द डेट ऑफ यूज. वैल्यूएशन में सिर्फ डिफरेंस क्या है, इंस्टेड ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन देयर इज व्हाट, अमोर्टाइजेशन. राइट्स में क्या है, वहां आप क्या देखते थे, परचेज इनवॉइस या लीगल सेल्स कन्वेंस डीड वगैरह, है ना. यहाँ पे क्या, एक्सपेंस इनवॉइस या परचेज कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स. एंड डिस्क्लोजर्स आर आल्सो द सेम, सो आर द नोट्स. ठीक है, ठीक है. टेल मी, इज इट क्लियर? क्विकली बताओ, एंड देन वी विल बी स्टार्टिंग विद द MCQs फॉर टुडे सेशन. Yes, Chitala, you are right. ठीक है, ठीक है. Now let us discuss the, just a minute. So let us have a look at the MCQs, and today I want all of you to reply. So read MCQ number 1. Once we go through the MCQ, then we will put together as to what we have covered today. Write one and your answer. And I've always asked you कि ये पढ़ो ध्यान से कि करेक्ट पूछ रहा है, इनकरेक्ट पूछ रहा है. क्वेश्चन, ठीक है। So with respect to direct confirmation procedures relating to trade receivables, which of the following is correct? Statement 1. Confirmations as well as undelivered letters should be given returned to the auditor and not to the client. Students, please check your answers. Statement 2. Where no reply is received, the auditor should perform alternate procedures regarding the balances. So option A says only statement 1 is correct, B says only statement 2 is correct, C says both 1 and 2 are correct, and D says both 1 and 2 are incorrect. ठीक है, अब देखते हैं statement 1 I am discussing. Confirmation as well as undelivered letter should be given return to the auditor. ये तो correct है ना, ठीक है. Where no reply is received, the auditor should perform alternate procedures. ये भी correct है. So the answer is what? C. Students who are giving me answers other than C, please give me the basis why you are saying that statement 1 is incorrect. बताओ. ये हमने पढ़ा ना, that auditor should make sure he should have the strict control over the addresses that are mentioned, the dispatch of letter, and the fact that the confirmation request and the undelivered letters are returned or are delivered to the auditor directly. ठीक है, एंड देखो यहाँ पर क्या लिखा है, विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज करेक्ट, सो डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज्ड. ठीक है, इज इट क्लियर? शैल वी प्रोसीड फर्दर? This is very simple. Question number 2. Students, question number 2 is very simple. उसमें भी if you are giving wrong answers, that is not acceptable. So please check your answers. So AS18 is for related party, which is correct. So which of the following is not correct? है ना? So AS10 is PP, AS28 is impairment, but AS16 is relating to what? Borrowing cost. And your intangible asset is what? AS26. So the option is D. Which of the following is not correct? Yes, I'll share all the MCQs before the completion of the sessions for chapter number 9. Anuradha. ठीक है. Third question. All you can devote 2 to 3 minutes to this question, but I don't want incorrect answers, है ना? All assets, liabilities, equity balances that are supposed to be recorded have been recognized in the financial statement. This assertion involved is it existence, is it right obligation, is it valuation, is it completeness? Quickly tell me what is the keyword here. ठीक है, write your answer. Third, what is the answer? And in this line, also tell me what is the keyword here. कंप्लीटनेस है ये कौन से वर्ड से आपको पता चल रहा है? Students, send in your replies. Yes, the keyword is all. All assets and liabilities equity balances that are supposed to be recorded have been recognized in the financial statement. तो completeness है ना? So the answer is D. ठीक है? ठीक है? Now with respect to fourth question. Which of the following expenditure is not to be added to the cost of property, plant and equipment? ये तो हमने आज किया है ना? तो बताओ. Quickly send in your replies. Yes, Anuradha, you are correct. Which of the following is not to be added? Option A is the acquisition cost of the asset. Option B is additions to the asset that increases the earning capacity. Option C is expenditure incurred to minimize the cost of production. And option D is expenditure in the form of general repairs on asset. Please send in your replies. So which is not added, not to be added. Acquisition cost तो add करते हैं. Addition to the asset that increases the earning capacity ये भी add करते हैं. Expenditure incurred to minimize ये भी add करते हैं. Which minimizes? The expenditure in the form of general repairs ये नहीं add करते. So the answer is D. So this time almost all of you have answered it correctly except for one student. Please, that student, check your answer. C by C. Hana? So the answer is what? D. Please check your answer. Question number 5th again. Hana? It is very simple. So these simple questions also na this will test as to whether you are able to remember the sections, you are able to understand what is contained in which section. Hana? So again, which of the following is not correct? Not. Section 52, securities premium account. Section 53, issue of shares at discount. 54, issue of bonus shares. 68, buyback of shares. So quickly send in your reply, students. The 5th question is so simple and I have received 3 different answers for this question. See, section 52 is for securities premium account, which is correct. 53 is for issue of shares at discount, which is also correct. 68 is for buyback of shares, which is also correct. But 54 is for what? Sweat equity shares. Hana? So why are you getting confused? Is it clear? Quickly send in your replies. Is it clear? Now the sixth question. With respect to which of the following passing of a special resolution is required by a company? So, Mr. Mishra, it is section 63. With respect to which of the following passing a special resolution? Issue of sweat equity shares, reduction of share capital, both A and B, none of A and B. So sweat equity shares के लिए तो होता है, reduction of share capital के लिए भी होता है. So the answer is what? Both A and B, that is C. So students who are not sending option C as the correct answer, please check your answers. See, this we have done now. Why is there so much confusion in this? This is sweat equity shares. So what was the question? So sweat equity shares में तो special resolution is required. ठीक है? Then reduction. Again, verify that a meeting held to pass the special resolution. So both requires. Huh? So for those who have got 6 out of 6, that is very good. Gyanish, that's good. So again, in the next session, we will discuss MCQs. But for that, for answering them correctly, first you will have to go through the module till where we are covering by today's session end. Okay? So what we have done today, so I hope you all are enjoying these MCQs. Okay? So with respect to the various assertions, we have completed today. This तो we have completed earlier, except for the notes. Okay? Inventories, PPE and intangible assets. Now we'll be touching upon what trade payables. We will not be able to complete trade payables, but the way the PPE and intangible assets का verification is just the same. Same way trade receivables में जो भी आपने पढ़ा ना, you will be studying the same with respect to trade payables except for few changes. ठीक है? So now my next question to you, tell me, अगर trade creditors, your sundry creditors or trade payables or your creditors, you have to verify them. What all procedures come to your mind? Abhi I'm not saying that which particular assertion, but a general discussion. Tell me. Trade payable creditors के लिए. Students, please send in your replies. So basically, the buyer's copy of sales invoice, 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 the buyer's copy That means, see, if you are purchasing something, the other party will be raising an invoice and that party will be giving you what? The buyer's copy of the sales invoice. Okay. External confirmation, correct. What else? Correct. Creditor aging. देखो अब तो आप बहुत अच्छे से आंसर कर रहे हो because you all like whoever is able to answer now. So I'm sure he is clear about the verification of trade receivables. तभी आपके answers are now coming exactly the way I want. Send in your replies. So external confirmation, purchase invoice, yes, related party transaction तो नहीं है, ठीक है. और यहाँ पर आप इंटरनल कंट्रोल किसका चेक करोगे? जैसे ट्रेड रिसीवेबल्स में यू चेक्ड फर्स्ट, you obtained a comfort with respect to the internal control of sales. Now here, internal control with respect to the GST returns, absolutely correct. इस वहां पर भी आ सकता था. Tell me, internal control with respect to purchases, absolutely correct, है ना? Then aging report, right? ठीक है. So let us have a look at it from the module. I'll give you certain paragraphs to be read as homework because these are absolutely the same as we have done the trade receivables. Analytical procedures, correct. Keep on sending the replies. Bank details, correct. Okay. So our next topic is what? Trade receivables. Just a minute. What is the page now? 54. Okay. So this is basically about trade payables and other current liabilities. So abhi we are just discussing about what? Trade payables. Okay. So check whether the controls are in place that any purchase or expense invoice do not get recorded more than once or the payable balance gets automatically recorded. Batao ye same hai na? Exactly. Obtain accounts payable aging report and trace its balances to the general ledger. Same hai. In case of any difference, investigate the reconciling item. Direct confirmation procedure, exactly the same hai na? Independently contact karo, ask them, okay, all significant account payables या some other transactions that are at the period end which are not significant, उसमें से भी कुछ select करो, है ना? Then consent of the entity is required. Valid grounds हैं या नहीं? If entity requests the auditor not to send a confirmation request, what are the valid grounds? Consider the impact of entity on other procedures, on management's representation, है ना? It may be requested as at the balance sheet date or any other date selected which is reasonably close to the date of balance sheet in consultation with company. What can be the form? With balance or without balance, है ना? ये सब पढ़ा हुआ है ना? Right? And again, the method of selection should not be disclosed to the company unless and until they give you the final list of all the trade creditors, your trade payables, and you will give them a list to prepare the confirmation request letter. But auditor will have a strict control as to ensure that correctness and proper dispatch of request. Also, it should be ensured that confirmation as well as undelivered letters are returned to the auditor and not to the client. ये सब पढ़ा है ना? Same आ रहा है ना? Segregation of duty, absolutely same. ठीक है? Then सेम व्हेन नो रिप्लाईज रिसीव्ड एडिशनल टेस्टिंग करेंगे, है ना. वहां क्या था, सब्सिक्वेंट रिसीट्स. अब यहाँ पर क्या आ जाएगा, सब्सिक्वेंट पेमेंट्स, है ना. ठीक है. देन रिस्पेक्टिव वेंडर इनवॉइसेस देखो, डिटेल्ड एनालिसिस देखो, है ना. एग्जामिनेशन इन डेप्थ एब्सोल्युटली सेम, है ना. ठीक है. इन केस ऑफ एनी रिलेटेड पार्टी पेबल्स आर देयर, है ना, वेदर दीज आर ऑथराइज्ड, रीजनेबल है या नहीं, एट आर्म्स लेंथ है या नहीं. ट्रेंड लाइन, दिस पॉइंट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट व्हाट, द ARPs, द एनालिटिकल रिव्यू प्रोसीजर्स, है ना. ट्रेंड लाइन देखो, लास्ट 5 इनवॉइसेस या बेस्ड ऑन दी ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल आप देखो 5 इनवॉइसेस या लास्ट 5 डेज के, कंसीडर देम, है ना. देन कट ऑफ, जस्ट अ मिनट, रिलेटेड पार्टीज डन, लास्ट 5 इनवॉइसेस आपने देख लिए हैं. टेस्ट परचेजेस एक्सपेंसेस ऑन सैंपल बेसिस, है ना. चेकिंग दे सपोर्टिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स, करेक्ट अमाउंट है या नहीं, करेक्ट डेट है या नहीं. ठीक है. ठीक है. आफ्टर दिस, there is some difference in this, so we will do that in the next session. Valuation, what is the process followed by the company, है ना. कंसिस्टेंसी कंपैरिजन करो, एजिंग शेड्यूल लो, एग्जैक्टली सेम, है ना. एंड सी वहां पर हम क्या कहते थे, प्रोविजन इज टू बी मेड या राइट ऑफ करना है. अब यहाँ पे इट माइट बी पॉसिबल ना दैट सर्टेन ट्रेड क्रेडिट योर ट्रेड पेबल और क्रेडिटर इज नाउ नॉट पेएबल, तो उसको राइट बैक करोगे ना, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट मोर, नो मोर, दैट इज नॉट अ लाइबिलिटी, है ना, एज अ. ठीक है. सो चेक दैट राइट बैक्स इन द लाइबिलिटी बैलेंसेस assessed as no longer payable have been approved by appropriate authorized member of senior management like CEO MD, है ना. कोई अप्रूव करेगा तभी तो आप राइट बैक कर सकते हो ना. ठीक है. इज इट क्लियर, है ना. सो देखो ट्रेड पेबल्स भी हमारा ऑलमोस्ट हो जाएगा, except for few points which we'll be discussing in the next session. Check that restatement of foreign currency trade payables AS11, effects of changes in foreign currency, है ना. ठीक है ना, सब कुछ सेम आ रहा है ना. एंड देन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू सी एजिंग ऑफ ट्रेड पेबल्स, एग्जैक्टली सेम, है ना. आउटस्टैंडिंग फॉर लेस देन 1 year, 1 to 2 year, 2 to 3 year, मोर देन 3 years. ठीक है. ये थोड़ा डिफरेंट है, वी विल डिस्कस दैट इन द नेक्स्ट सेशन. ठीक है. ठीक है. बाकी तो आपको डिस्कस करना पड़ेगा नेक्स्ट सेशन में. ठीक है. सो व्हाट इज द होमवर्क फॉर यू, दैट व्हाटएवर इज सेम, whatever is almost the same as we have done in trade receivable, please go through the module, है ना. And in the next session you can always ask the queries with respect to the matter which is almost the same, है ना. तो सिंपल है, वहां पर आप क्या लिखते हो कि आपको क्या देखना है, रिटर्न ऑफ करना है या नहीं. यहाँ पे आप राइट बैक करोगे, है ना. स्मॉल चेंजेस आर देयर. ठीक है. So we will do one thing, we will end the session for today because abhi trade payables ko detail mein discuss karna is not possible. But before ending the session for today, please let me know whether whatever we have done so far is clear or not. And students, I'm requesting you, repeating it again here, that see, we have covered almost 62 pages except for the notes of share capital and borrowings. Agar abhi bhi you don't start learning na, you don't start preparing for your exam, then attending the session is will not be so much beneficial for you, है ना. So next session, which is on Wednesday 30th November, before coming for that session, please, before coming for that session go through the module in entirety till where we have covered. कोई doubts है तो अभी these can be resolved easily. ठीक है. So Krishna is saying ma'am crystal clear, Alok is saying ma'am clear till now. ठीक है. चलो, that's good. So thank you and start studying if you haven't. ठीक है. And good night. See you on Wednesday. Thank you.